Clara had never imagined that leaving her small town would lead her into such a nightmare. The wagon creaked under the weight of her meager belongings as it rolled along the dusty trail, the sun dipping low in the sky, painting the valley ahead in harsh shades of orange and red. She had clutched her worn suitcase tightly, hoping that this move, this strange arrangement as a mail-order bride, would bring her a chance at safety, love, and a life worth living. But the moment she laid eyes on Gage, the man who was supposed to welcome her to her new home, her heart sank into her stomach. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a crooked grin that promised nothing but trouble. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned her like a prized animal, calculating, judging. From the first handshake, Clara felt the power imbalance. His grip was firm, almost punishing, and the smirk he offered was devoid of warmth. He made a comment about her being too delicate for frontier life, and the words landed on her like a slap. She forced a polite smile, telling herself it would get better, that everyone had rough edges out here, that this was just how the frontier was. But inside a cold dread settled. The town looked quiet, almost quaint, but that calm was deceptive. There was a tension in the air, a stillness that spoke of secrets and hidden dangers. Her first night in Gage's cabin was a cruel awakening. The place was small, with rough wooden floors and a fireplace that barely kept the chill at bay. Gage did not offer her a bed of comfort. Instead, she was directed to a narrow cot shoved against the wall. He lingered nearby, his presence oppressive, and spoke in sharp tones, criticizing her every movement. "You'll break if you handle the chores wrong," he said. "Better learn quick or you'll regret it." His words were like nails driving into her fragile hope. Clara lay awake that night, shivering not only from the cold but from fear, wondering how someone could be so cruel and thinking desperately that maybe, just maybe, she could endure. The days that followed were grueling. Gage assigned her to the harshest tasks, hauling water from the creek, feeding the horses, cleaning the barn. Every mistake was met with a scowl or a harsh remark, and when she faltered physically from exhaustion, he mocked her, calling her weak. Clara kept her head down, trying to comply, yet inside a small ember of defiance burned. She knew she could not let herself completely break. Some part of her clung stubbornly to the hope that this life could change, that maybe someone would come to rescue her from the daily torment. In the shadows of the valley, Henry, the mountain man, watched. He had been living alone in the hills for years, far from the town and its rough manners. People whispered about him, calling him a recluse, perhaps even dangerous, but the truth was that he had chosen solitude after losing everything he loved. Seeing Clara's suffering stirred something long dormant in him. He had witnessed cruelty before, but something about the way she flinched at every glance, at every word, tugged at his heart. Henry did not act immediately. He knew that rushing in without preparation could worsen her situation. Instead, he began leaving small offerings: a basket of fresh bread, a bundle of clean water, a note scrawled with words of encouragement. Clara found these gifts initially with disbelief, then with cautious relief. She had no idea who the giver was, yet the kindness, though small, ignited a fragile hope inside her, like a candle flickering against a storm. One afternoon, as Clara struggled to herd the horses back into the corral, Gage's temper snapped over a minor mistake. A horse had bolted slightly, and he grabbed her arm, pushing her against the wooden fence. Pain shot through her, and fear surged as his laughter echoed in the quiet valley. Clara felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the sense of helplessness she had carried since arriving. But this time, the fear was accompanied by a stubborn refusal to be broken entirely. She wanted to cry out, to run, but she was painfully aware of her vulnerability. It was then, as if summoned by her silent plea, that Henry stepped forward from the shadows. He emerged not with a weapon, but with a calm and imposing presence that immediately shifted the dynamic. Gage's laughter faltered and his eyes narrowed. He sized Henry up and for the first time did not dismiss him. The mountain man's face was stoic, lined with the quiet strength of someone who had endured much. There was no threat in his stance, only a certainty that bordered on unshakable. Clara felt a strange relief wash over her. She did not know this man, yet instinctively she knew she could trust him. Henry did not speak at first. He simply stood there, letting his gaze convey a silent warning. Gage, used to controlling everyone around him, found himself uncertain. The wind rustled the nearby trees, carrying away the last remnants of the tense standoff. After a moment, Gage spat onto the ground and retreated, muttering threats under his breath but clearly shaken by Henry's quiet authority. Clara could barely believe what had happened. She had never imagined that someone could step into her life and immediately create a sense of safety she hadn't felt in days. That night, Clara sat alone in the cabin, thinking over the day's events. She held her arms around herself, trying to imagine a life beyond fear, beyond Gage's cruel dominance. The basket Henry had left earlier that day contained more than food. It was a symbol, a sign that someone cared enough to act. Her heart dared to hope that she might survive this ordeal, that perhaps even in a place so wild and harsh kindness could exist. The next morning, Henry approached her quietly at the edge of the woods. "It's safer with me," he said simply. There was no pressure, no demand, only a steady offer of protection. Clara hesitated, her mind a whirlwind of fear and longing for freedom. Could she trust this man? Could she risk leaving the place she hated, not knowing what awaited her? Her survival instincts warred with the desire to escape the abuse. And yet something in Henry's calm, unyielding eyes gave her the courage she needed. Slowly she nodded. As they set off toward the mountains, each step was a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Clara felt the oppressive weight of the town, of Gage's cruelty, fall away with every mile. She looked back only once at the cabin that had held her in chains of fear and felt a mixture of anger, sorrow, and relief. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges, but for the first time in days, she believed in the possibility of a life where she was more than just a victim. Through the dense forest and up rugged trails, Henry remained silent, guiding her with quiet competence. Clara's muscles ached. Her hands blistered from climbing and gripping roots and rocks, but every step felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She thought of the small basket of bread and water that had first reached her from the shadows, and she realized that sometimes hope arrives in the most unexpected forms. It may be silent, it may be patient, but it can be powerful enough to save a person from despair. By nightfall, they reached a small clearing where a fire could be built safely. Clara watched Henry prepare the meal with a reverence that bordered on awe. The firelight flickered across his weathered features, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the cold, harsh reality she had endured. For the first time since arriving in the valley, Clara felt her heart slow, felt the tension in her body ease. She was not alone, and for the first time, she dared to believe that perhaps she would survive this nightmare and even thrive. The mountains welcomed Clara with a chill that bit through her thin coat and a silence so deep it pressed against her ears. She walked carefully, her hands gripping the straps of her small bag, her legs trembling not just from the climb but from a mixture of fear and anticipation. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of leaves made her heart race. Behind her, Henry moved with steady confidence, his presence like an anchor. He didn't speak, but she felt his eyes on her, steady and reassuring. A silent promise that she would not face the dangers of the world alone. The valley below faded from view, and with it, the fear and cruelty she had endured at Gage's hands. For the first few days, Clara struggled with the mountain's raw and unyielding demands. She stumbled on uneven trails, tripped over roots, and fought the soreness in her muscles. Henry was patient but firm. When she faltered, he didn't chastise her. Instead, he would place a steadying hand on her arm, guide her over obstacles, and let her know in gestures and glances that she was capable of more than she believed. Slowly, Clara discovered reserves of strength she had never known existed. Each step became a quiet victory. Each night spent under the stars brought a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced in months. Henry's cabin in a secluded clearing became her new sanctuary. It was modest, made of timber and stone, but it was warm and safe. He had built it with care, a place where the wind and cold could not reach easily. Clara marveled at his simple yet functional arrangements. The small hearth, the neatly stacked firewood, the shelves of provisions. She began to feel a connection to this place, not just for its safety, but for what it represented. Freedom, solitude, and a chance to rebuild herself. She could breathe here. She could begin to trust again. Henry taught her to survive, but survival came with lessons beyond mere physical endurance. He showed her how to read the tracks of animals, how to find fresh water, how to tell which plants were safe to eat. Each day was a mixture of hard labor and quiet reflection,